to Bill Flynn in the morning.
Well, this is the Love Your Lawn Hour, and I tell you what, this is the time of year where we have really got to focus on our lawns if we want to have that lawn to love. And to help us do that this morning, from Growing Green, the Turf Commander, Jonathan Rigsbee is with us this morning. Jonathan, good morning.
Good morning, Bill.
How's your week been since I last saw you? I know you had a runaway dog that now has come home. That's got to be a good feeling.
Oh, yeah. You know, everything's good at home. Family's fine, and
Right.
the dog's home, so life is good again.
We've talked about dogs a little bit on the show and how careful you are with the products you use. That you're thinking about those pets that people have when you're applying things to lawn surfaces. Partly because you got your own, and you have your own test equipment, if you will, in that way. You're not going to do something to your lawn that's going to, injure or potentially damage one of your pets.
Well, exactly, and one of the things that gets brought up often is, are the products we use safe? Is it going to hurt my animals? Is it going to hurt my kids? And, one of the things that I guess people really don't think about is our employees are exposed to it 25 times every day more than what we put out on your property. So we're not going to put something out or use something that's going to be dangerous that could potentially cause harm to you or your pets. And one of the things that we've done is we adopted a stray and we named her Clover, and she's our company mascot. And we use her kind of as a, beacon to say, her safety is the utmost importance. And I want her to go out into the lawn and enjoy it, roll around, run, play, eat the grass, and not have to worry that we just sprayed an hour ago or we put something out that she might eat. So when we're building our programs and choosing products, safety is the number one thing that we look at before we pick a product.
And that certainly does pay dividends as an animal lover myself, and we look out for those moments. I want to talk, if you would, about not just the time of year and the cycle of the season we're in, but also the choices that you have with Growing Green that consumers really want or need to be aware of now, and maybe the packaging of some of these services for the maximum value for that customer.
Well, and that's a great point, Bill. One of the things that we adopted a few years ago is when about 3 years ago, and I'm just to use round numbers, we used to pay $9-10 for a bag of fertilizer. Well, everybody remember when the drought hit, and that really put a squeeze on corn and a lot of other crops, and that affects us directly in that fertilizer is used on corn. Fertilizer is made from petroleum. So we had to start looking for other solutions. And one of the things that we had been looking at, but there just wasn't a whole lot of university research on, were some of the biological programs. And it really kind of forced our hand to go ahead and dig in that fall and look at them. And we took a leap of faith. We used a biological fertilizer that fall and basically had good results with it. And we've kind of moved our program every year a little bit further to the biological side of things. And what we found is the more we feed the soil and rebuild the soil up, the better the plant does year round. And we work with a company called Organics, and they make a great biological mix for us. We actually have to keep it in refrigerators so the live cultures stay active and alive, unlike a lot of our competitors who are keeping something on the shelf for a year or two.
What are some of the elements in these live organics, and part of the service package that you offer here includes these items? What are some of the elements in there that make them organic based versus the petroleum based? What is the specific differences you're seeing in those two?
Well, what the main difference is, we're using natural products. We're using stuff called mycorrhiza. We're using biological agents that are naturally found in the soil that help. And what we're doing is we're just putting them back where the soil's been stripped over the years. We're using compost tea. We're using a lot of stuff that you can find in your house. A lot of just natural products and we're just putting them back into the soil. All our fertilizers are biosolids, which are basically recomposted waste, and that reduces the amount of petroleum that's used to make them. And by using the biosolids, we're adding kind of compost back to the soil, if you will, and adding organic matter back to the soil. And that's one of the things we see that's really stripped out of our soils today in this area. And
these things, I don't know if the word inert would necessarily be accurate, because they are active and growing and alive. But these, I think it's really important to underscore, these are safety tested. You know that, they have had trial safety exposures, and you know what to expect and exactly what you're getting here. This is not just an experiment that you're running out there. Hey, we're going to try this.
Exactly. And one of the things that we look at is something called the LD50. And that's the lethal dose it takes to kill 50% of a population. And when you look at LD50s of a lot of our products, they are about a third of what table salt is. And so when you take that into consideration, most of the stuff that you have in your house right now underneath your sink, table salt, Clorox, has a really, really much higher LD50 than what we're going to use. And being on the cutting edge of technology and working with universities, we do have the ability to test new products. We only use products that are generally what we call new generation, which means they've come out within the last 10 years. A lot of the products back in the 70s and 60s weren't tested very well, and a lot of those have been taken off the market. And unfortunately, that's where some of the bad reputation comes from. But a lot of the products that we're using today, they have very, very low use rates. They're very, very quickly bound in the soil. They don't wash, and then they're broken down rather quickly. And the big thing that we like is they're site specific. When we go out and put an insecticide out on your lawn, we're not killing the beneficial insects. We're only killing the target that we're going after. So if we put a grub control down, the only thing that's going to be affected is that species of grub. We're not going to kill the earthworms. We're not going to kill the ladybugs. We're not going to kill the beneficials that we need there to help continue to build the soil back up.
I know one of the things you enjoy, and we'll open up the phone lines to this option, is looking at specific conditions and or concerns on each customer's lawn and dealing with that. And maybe you have a situation right now that's developing in your lawn or has been even a long time concern. Now would be a great time to call and get the expert's advice here of ways you might be able to navigate around an area that is not growing the grass you want to see or other issues. I've got something going on with acorns I'm going to ask you about when I come back on this topic. But if you'd like to join our conversation, 896-1980, 896-1980, to talk to our Turf Commander about your yard. Specifics are great.
Call now. The number is 896-1980, AM 980 The Eagle.
It's AM 980 The Eagle, Bill Flynn this morning, and we continue with our Love Your Lawn Hour, and to help us maximize all things regarding the comfort of your lawn and getting the most out of it. And by the way, not dedicating all of your free time in life to get it done yourself, but getting the help you need efficiently and affordably. That's the part of the message of Growing Green. The website is growinggreen.com, and Jonathan Rigsbee is our Turf Commander this morning, owner of the company, which, by the way, is a great American success story. Started with about $1,000 in a dream, and now you've got well over 2,000 customers that you keep happy on a routine basis. And our job is to tell that story and to see how things progress from here. But I just on a personal note, by the way, if you have a question for Jonathan about your lawn, nothing is too specific at this point. Go ahead and roll that out here. You're welcome to do that. 896-1980, our phone number, 896-1980. And in my own case, Jonathan, I've got a bumper crop of acorns this year. Now, it's not normally the problem that I got this year, but I mean, they are everywhere. My driveway, I can clear it off, and within, that afternoon, by the next morning, you never know that I was out there. I mean, it's that kind of intensity. Are there concerns with acorns and or other tree nuts that will inhibit grass growth if they're left? I mean, what is the best way to deal with an immense number of acorns on a lawn?
Well, the problem with acorns are that, you really can't blow them because they're so heavy. So you almost have to kind of rake them up. And, if you've seeded that area, you're going to disturb the new grass. Probably what we're seeing happen this year and why you're seeing so many is we've had a really good wet year and the tree has been able to produce at a normal rate. And it's probably not producing more than normal. It's just the last couple of years we've had droughts, we've had stress, and they were probably suppressed somewhat. Now, one of the biggest things, especially under oak trees, we have seen a kind of a situation where you'll see a ring underneath an oak tree, and that ring is stunted, and it's directly beneath the drip line, which is kind of the furthest point out. And there's been some speculation, some studies done that the tree's actually kind of releasing a neurotoxin or a root inhibitor that is causing that. And so if it's a big problem and you're having trouble growing grass there, it may be a good place to look at doing a natural area. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we like to encourage people is, identify where the grass will grow and where it's meant to grow. We cannot just make it grow there because, we want it there. And sometimes you just have to give in and say Mother Nature is going to win.
It reminds me of one of the ways intelligent college campuses are designed. Before, they'll put the buildings out there, and they'll watch where student foot traffic naturally flows, and then build, the lawn and the whatever else you want to add, bushes or what have you, to that equation. Once it's clear, okay, this is how most people are going to go. Rather than trying to tell everybody stay off the grass, let nature and or in this case the students kind of set that tone, and then you deal with those parameters intelligently for the best results.
Well, exactly. And one of the things when I was at NC State, we had areas where the campus landscape department would plant these plants. We would call them our favorite playground plant or traffic plant. And these things would have 2 foot or 2 inch long thorns on them. And there was no way you were going through there. So they would always put them so you couldn't cut a corner or you always had to stay on the sidewalk. And that made a big impression on me when I was in college that, those plants, and they were just tenacious. I mean, it looked like a needle sticking out of them. And you did not go through those. And that's how NC State keeps you on their tracks. but you're right, and in a lot of ways, and it's funny we talk about acorns. I was listening to a great book by Phil Robertson, the Duck Commander from Duck Dynasty, and one of the things he talks about is how God, engineered an acorn to become an oak tree and then become the furniture in your house. All from that little acorn laying in your yard. Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. And it's a huge buffet right now for the squirrel population in the neighborhood. I did notice, too, though, and I don't know when those acorns, if they stay on the driveway for, a couple of days, I'll notice they'll actually, looks like an oil starts coming out of them, especially if they get crushed by a tire wheel or something. Is that necessarily going to inhibit the grass growth? I mean, is there anything in the acorn itself that is toxic to the grasses as you know it to be?
Well, like I said, they've always suspected that the roots put out some kind of toxin. We've never really been able to identify it from an acorn itself.
I see.
Now, one of the problems with the acorns are generally people don't get them up and they let them just kind of work their way into the soil. Then we see the trees come up in the spring. Mm-hmm. You'll see the little oak saplings come up. And they're somewhat difficult to control because they're a tree and they're very woody and have a real sturdy root system. But most of the time, mowing will just take them out. They can't withstand the low mowing height of the turf, and they'll die on their own. So if you do get to the spring and see trees growing, don't panic that you've got little trees growing in your lawn. As you start to mow on a regular basis, they'll just kind of go away.
What about this time? We've talked a lot about on our previous show about seeding and aerating and the things to do. Are there some things this time of year? Are there some other areas regarding bushes and trees that maybe we maximize this season? We're going to come back with that question and much more on this Love Your Lawn Hour with our Turf Commander, Jonathan Rigsbee, and Growing Green. And let me encourage you to go to the website for some great information at growinggreen.com. That's growingreen.com. And I'm Bill Flynn. We'll be back in just a moment. If you have a question for our Turf Commander, 896-1980.
Call now. The number is 896-1980. AM 980 The Eagle.
Hi there. 936. We have the Love Your Lawn Hour going on this morning with Jonathan Rigsbee at Growing Green. And let me encourage you to visit the website, growinggreen.com. If you're more of a phone person, that phone number is 1-866-LAWN-HELP. 1-866-LAWN-HELP, H-E-L-P. Jonathan, if you would address for us now, we talk a lot about the grass, and I know you're focused on turf issues, but for a lot of us, we have added some plants, some flowering plants, some otherwise plants that are there for maybe a crowd control, like you were telling about North Carolina State, that you want people to go a certain way, or you want your the eye to be drawn to a certain part of your lawn. What about our bushes? What about our shrubs? What about our small trees? And this time of year, what do we need to be thinking about for their health?
Well, that's a great question, Bill, and we have spent a lot of time on the lawn, but there's other parts of the landscape we need to get to as well. One of the big things that we do at Growing Green, we have a tree and shrub program, just like our lawn program, where we come out on a systematic approach and take care of their fertilization, their insect and disease control, mites, scale, look for potential problems, and we alert the homeowner to them. And it's always kind of amazing to me that your landscape makes up probably the most expensive part of your property other than your house itself, but it's probably the most neglected in what we see. Everybody will look at the lawn and they'll want the lawn perfect, but we'll see insects eating their shrubs all to pieces, and they won't do anything about it. And but
is it because we think that shrub is gonna? Oh, this is just a moment, a strong plant, it'll get through it. I mean, what's the thinking behind that you found?
I think it's just out of sight, out of mind. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people don't notice it until we bring it to their attention, and they see the lawn every day. Their neighbors see the lawn. They're judged on the way the lawn looks a lot of times, but the health of the plants, they've been there, they've never had a problem. Why do I want to take care of them? Why should I put money into them? Well, the answer to that is the cost to replace them is tremendous. When you look at a plant that's been growing for 10 or 15 years, and like I said, we get the opportunity to test a lot of products for a lot of the companies. Generally that's a great way to see how they work. A couple of years ago, we used a product that didn't work out so well, and it was a herbicide that's been in the news, so and it's well known, called Imprellis, and it was put out by DuPont, and they did a lot of university studies. It was a great herbicide. It was touted as the safest herbicide ever to be put out on the market. We did test in my own yard, didn't have any problems. One of the big benefits to it was you could spray it and then seed right afterwards. Unlike the other herbicides we use, you can't do that. And you could actually spray over top of your new seeding and it wouldn't hurt it. So there were a lot of good things that we looked at. It was a very low use rate. I think it was 4 ounces to the acre. So a lot of benefits to us and the consumer and the environment, frankly. But one of the things that wasn't so good is it started killing large trees. And about 6 months after we started with it, we started seeing 40, 50-foot oak trees dying. We started seeing large evergreens and stuff having problems. So we had to, remediate those for our customers. And we've worked with DuPont, and they've done a great job stepping up to the plate and taking care of these issues. But my point with this is it really opened our eyes to the value of your landscape. When they had arborists come in and value the trees that were affected. When you look at just a 40 to 50-foot Leyland cypress, that tree at that mature size is worth about $10,000.
I think people would be astonished to know that the market value that you can put on things, number one, that you can do that. Is that to say the amount of time and effort it would take to grow a sapling into that? Is that where that idea comes from? Or if you were to try to put that size of a tree in your lawn to replace it?
Well, and it's kind of a combination of both.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's the replacement cost, what's the replacement value,
mm-hmm.
what's the loss of use. When you lose a line of trees, your whole environment changes.
It does. I've got just a quick example about that. There's some new construction going on diagonally across the street from my house. And I have an outdoor patio area. And I could swear to you that I can feel a breeze, a draft out there that wasn't there before when those trees that had densely populated that lot were removed to make room for the construction that was going on. And while I welcome the construction, but that's exactly true. It changes everything. It changes the view. It changes the feel. And I hadn't really thought of it that way until this personal example, and now what you're saying too.
Well, and it also changes the health of your landscape. When you have a landscape that's accustomed to the shade that these trees provide, and then you take that out, and now all of a sudden you have shade-loving plants in a sun environment, you're going to see your landscape dramatically change in the way it performs. And your lawn as well. I mean, it's going to affect everything about it.
But real quick, just on the topic of somebody that maybe is thinking about clearing a lot to build a structure versus maybe leaving a few trees but still access to where you need to get to. What is the balance you have to weigh there? What are the pros and cons for each of those?
Well, as a tree lover, I don't want to cut any trees down first if we don't have to. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go up and clean them up, get the dead wood out of them, shape them. And, if you've got a lot and it's just full of trees and you've got to get some out, what I would do is I would go through and I would identify those trees as an A, B, and C. A, you don't want to cut it down. It's a great tree specimen. It's healthy. Not any problems on it.
Maybe a hardwood would fall in.
It could be
there.
A hardwood.
Yeah.
It could be a type, what you like. Could be it's got characteristics that you just absolutely don't want to lose that tree. Then you've got your B trees are kind of intermediate. They've got some characteristics. They may have some dead wood in them.
Okay, tell you what, if you'll hold on we'll continue the thought of those trees in order like that in just a moment with our final segment. And we're with the Love Your Lawn Hour, and Jonathan Rigsbee joins us with Growing Green. Website is growinggreen.com, growinggreen.com, growinggreen.com.
Call now. The number is 896-1980, AM 980 The Eagle.
Good morning. We continue our final segment on our Growing Green Hour here with Jonathan Rigsbee, the Love Your Lawn Hour with Growing Green. Phone number there is 1-866-LAWN-HELP, 1-866-LAWN-HELP if you would like to call. And this window of weather we've been had, boy, we really got some cool temperatures over the weekend, and this morning cool and rainy, and grass is really loving this time of year. I know we'll talk about that, but I want to finish up you're talking about trees on a lot and clearing the trees and deciding which of the three categories these trees would fall into. And you mentioned the A category being a tree that you really, really like. It's got a wonderful health to it, and you think it's going to, and obviously not in the way where you need to get to on the lot if you're clearing it for construction. And you were starting to tell us what the other considerations would be for the other two categories.
Well, we were talking about the B category, and an easy way to kind of look at it is if you've got a big grand old oak tree, that's going to be your A tree. You don't want to cut that tree down. If you've got nice pines or nice maples that are healthy and they're doing okay, those would be my B categories. Then C would be all my scrub trees, thin, not much value to them, growing up beside each other. Something's going to have to give at some point. So once you identify that, then you can start with the C's and take those out first, see how the lot looks, and then you can selectively do the B's, and then again reassess until you get to where you want. A lot of times when you're looking at a full lot of trees and you take a few out, it'll open it up, instead of just clear cutting.
And you really do get a lot more depth and dimension on a lot if you can leave some trees. And I say that, we did that with our lot years ago when we built the house. And it certainly, there's always going to be challenges. I mean, if you have trees, you're going to have leaves. You're going to have to clean your roof and make sure they don't build up, the leaves and the other debris from the trees. But I tell you, it's so worth it. In our case, in the summertime, you have some wonderful shade, and there's a warmth that you get with trees, and I don't want to ignore the other side of that too. Those shrubs you bring in specifically for your lot once you've maybe built that house, and you want to put some really, accentuate certain parts of the geography of the lot or the architecture of the house. That can go a long way to really setting a jewel up, I would think.
Well, the National Association of Realtors have said that a well-maintained landscape can add 10 to 15% to the value of your home. And that in itself is enough to, at least maintain what you have.
Well, real quick, if you're looking at a $150,000 house, that's 15% on the low, 15,000 on the low side of that number. And who can ignore that kind of money?
No, and like I say, after going through the Imprella situation and seeing some of the values they put on trees, there's definitely, they're definitely worth it. They're valuable. I mean, we saw 60, 70-foot oak trees valued at $15,000. And, you're not going to probably ever see that again in your lifetime in that kind of situation, but think of what it would take to grow that tree to that size and the amount of water, care, consideration it would take to get it there. And, when you're selling a house, a mature landscape definitely adds value. It adds curb appeal. It gives that home look, lived-in feeling.
What about this time of year? I know that occasionally where our trees are, I have to watch the limbs because they will grow over the driveway path, and if I want to get a truck down there or something like that, I have to make sure those limbs are reasonable for all parties concerned. And is there an optimal time to be, making those pruning decisions now, or when is that window best served?
Well, for large trees, if you've got dead wood and there's with the impending weather coming for the winter, if you've got limbs that you think could be a hazard, go ahead and take them out now. Don't wait for a specific time. Those trees have been there for years. They're going to survive just about anything. So ideally, on your landscape plants and your small trees, you're going to want to wait till we have a hard frost and we kind of get through the winter. There's a period between, say, December and the spring before they really start setting bud, which is the ideal time to do any hard pruning. Now, you don't want to do a lot of pruning right now just because when you make a cut, you're going to open it up for a freeze injury and for damage going into the frost.
How long does it take for that to heal? You're saying right now is not the best time. I mean, a month and a half ago or 3 months ago, would that have been a time you could have gotten away with it, that shorter window?
Oh, yeah. During the growing season, plants will recover fairly quickly. The only thing you have to worry about during the growing season is the flowers and the bud setting. With azaleas, you want to prune them right after they flower. You don't want to wait and prune them right when they come out in the spring, because a lot of them will flower a little later, and you're going to cut all the flower buds off. But stuff like boxwoods, you can go in, just about any time during the summer and be okay. If you want to do a hard pruning, though, you need to let them really kind of shut down, get set by the frost, and then prune them when they're in kind of that dead period so they come out with a nice new growth on them. Now, one of the other big things you mentioned, when you do make a cut, you open the tree up for insect activity. That's a portal for insects to kind of come in. And one of the things that is very important, especially this time of the year, we see a lot of scale. We see a lot of insect movement for the fall. And scale is one of the harder things to control. And if you look at certain plants, you'll see kind of a bumpiness to the branch, or you'll see white just coating the branch. And there are multiple types of scale, but now is the best time to control scale for most of the plants that we see. So if you've got like euonymus in your lawn, you've got any kind of tree that you've seen scale on, skip laurels, autoleucans up near your house, now's the time to do a scale treatment for them.
And that treatment would be the application of some type of pre-emergent organic-based product. What do you recommend for
with
that?
Those, we would use a product that's over the top and it sprays the scale. We use a light dormant oil, and then we would spray them all winter with the dormant oil. And what it is just really just kind of an oil, and it smothers them, and it kind of suffocates them to death. And they're getting ready to kind of go through different life stages. So doing it once now, doing it again in the winter, and then once again in the spring, you can generally get pretty good control.
You mentioned the age of some of these trees, and you talk about lawn being a living organism. I mean, is there an age cycle for? I mean, is an oak tree going to just keep on being a healthy oak tree if you take care of it until, 150 years or 250 years? I mean, what is the life cycle of some of these plants you commonly see?
Well, and that's going to really vary from the plant. Now, one of the big problems that we're seeing right now are Bradford pears. Everybody planted Bradford pears 15, 20 years ago in their front yard, and now you're seeing them split every time we have an ice storm. They are so top heavy and so weak in the crotch of where the branches meet. They're starting to just kind of split in half with ice storms, and so they're kind of at the end of their life cycle. When that happens,
is that done? Is that plant not going to survive?
For the most part, you've opened such an injury to insects and diseases. Generally, a secondary infection is going to be what kills it, but you've also disrupted the balance of the tree. So it's just a matter of time before a windstorm takes it out. The same thing with Leyland cypress. Those have about a 15-year window until they're very shallow rooted plant. When they get really tall, we see a lot of ice storms and a lot of winter damage with them. They get blown over very easily. So every plant's kind of got a life cycle to it. Some are longer than others. Oak trees, probably the longest of anything we see. We rarely see oak trees really, if they're kind of put in the right place, right plant, they'll certainly outlive us. Maple trees are a little bit less. We see maple trees start to have problems after about 10 to 15 years.
Can a superstructure, even a small one, change the health of a tree? And I say that because we put up a doghouse in our backyard, apparently over some roots, and it wasn't a huge tree, but it was one, and I can't swear that the two are related, but that tree did die, and I'm in the process now of getting rid of it in the backyard. Is that at all possible that the addition to a lawn can change the health of a plant like that?
It is, and we see that all the time with construction. When they build houses next to big trees, and the trees over the next 5 to 10 years just die.
Well, we've touched on a lot of topics this morning. I want to encourage folks to call and get more details about growing green. 1-866-LAWN-HELP. 1-866-LAWN-HELP. And visit the website growinggreen.com. Bill Flynn this morning. Thank you, Jonathan. We'll see you next week.